talks about minorities, right? Which minorities? Both linguistic minorities and religious minorities, right? So we already seen that. Religious and linguistic. What does it give to them? Shall have the right. Right to do what? Right to establish. Right to establish what? Educational institutions. Institutions of their choice. Simple, institutions, yes, and of their choice. What does it mean? That what does it tell you? This right is available to whom? Let's understand now. Available to minorities only. Very important. Article 29, the right to conserve your distinct culture, script, and language was available to all, minority, majority, whatever. This one is not available to all. This is available to minority only. And what? Two kinds of minorities that we already seen. So they have right to establish educational institutions. Talking about only educational institutions. So it is limited to that. Let's go to there's one amendment to this, which is in 1A, which is what? Subclause 5 amendment. In making law, any law, providing for compulsory acquisition of any property of an education institution established and administered by a minority referred to in clause 1. The state shall ensure that the amount fixed for by or determined under such a law for the acquisition of such property is such as would not restrict or abrogate the right guaranteed under the clause. So this is a special protection again. Now, under the Land Acquisition Act and different acts, if there is there's a school, for example, run by government or any private school, any public school, there are so many, this school, that school, Little Star School है, प्राइवेट स्कूल चल, और वो जहाँ बना हुआ है वहां से अभी हाईवे जाने वाला, हाईवे की अलाइनमेंट हो गई, हाईवे हैज टू बी कंस्ट्रक्टेड एंड that land has to be acquired, the school will be demolished, right, and road will be built. That can be acquired by giving compensation, right, because there is a provision. However, if that school is an education institution run by a minority, mere giving compensation is not enough. What does it mean? Compensation तो आपको देना ही होगा, but वो उसके fundamental right को आप ये नहीं कर सकते, right? Which means that if they come up with this ground that okay, you're giving us compensation, but this is taking away our right, and there's no other place where we can build it. There's no way we can now run our school, and it is violating our right under Article 30. Then that consideration will also have to be borne in mind. Addition to giving a compensation. That is what this section says. अब इसको समझते हैं कि क्या what does actually constitute the minority educational institution. So these are the institutions which are set up by that community, okay, by their own funds. The management which governs the functioning of such institutions is completely with the community. Such institutions fall in the category of minority institutions. So in this reference, well, let's just simply talk about clause 2, and then we'll come back to something. The state shall not, in granting aid to educational institutions, discriminate against any educational institution on the ground that it is under the management of a minority, whether based on religion or language. Clear है इससे? क्या कह रहा है ये कह रहा है कि जब भी एड देने की बात होगी, क्योंकि एड देती है गवर्नमेंट स्कूलों को, तो उसमें स्कूल डिस्क्रिमिनेट नहीं करेगा कि ये माइनॉरिटी स्कूल है। एक तो मान लीजिए कि कोई पारसी का स्कूल है, या फिर कोई जैन का, कोई बुद्धिस्ट का, या कोई इस्लाम धर्म के वाले का स्कूल है, तो स्टेट उसमें डिस्टिंक्शन नहीं करेगा। ऐसा नहीं होगा कि वो इनको देंगे और उनको मना कर देंगे, only on the ground that it is a minority school. And I told you minority school ka definition basically is where it is being funded, it has been started with the funds from that community, specific community, and it is being run by the management which which has the members of that community primarily. Okay? So now let us talk about a couple of issues that arose. One very relevant issue is, you might have also come across it, is the issue of Aligarh Muslim University. AMU नाम सुना आप लोगों ने? So this AMU was recently in news, right? Do you know what that was about? So this becomes very relevant, and Article 30 becomes again current because of this. Because she said, so Aligarh Muslim University was it's a very famous university, right? One of the most famous AMU, Aligarh Muslim University, जैसे बनारस हिंदू यूनिवर्सिटी है, या फिर जामिया मिलिया इस्लामिया है, इस तरह की जो दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी बड़ी फेमस यूनिवर्सिटीज रही हैं. तो दिस यूनिवर्सिटी वाज सेट अप लॉन्ग बैक. दिस वाज सेट अप, सैयद अहमद खान हुआ करते थे. ये आपने हिस्ट्री में पढ़ा होगा, पढ़ोगे. सैयद अहमद खान का नाम पढ़ा है? तो सैयद अहमद खान हैड सेट अप one Mohammedan Oriental college. He had set up a Mohammedan Oriental, एक college था ये, Mohammedan Anglo Oriental College. So this is MAO type of college. Mohammedan Anglo Oriental College he had set up. He gave money and that college was running, and that college was a minority institution. But that was long back, right? Then this Mohammedan Anglo Oriental College in 1920 was made into a university. It turned into a university by an AMU Act. एक Aligarh Muslim University Act लाया, British ने लाया in 1920. Of course, 1920 में it was British. So British came up with by way of a Aligarh Muslim University Act. Generally, universities are constituted by this act, जो बड़ी universities होती है, of 1920. Now, in 1920, when this was an act of the government, जब चीजें कोई act से बनती हैं, तो it lost its minority status. So when it became a university under this act, the result was lost its minority status, and it has been since then running almost as a non-minority issue. This issue came up once before the Supreme Court also, and in that matter, Supreme Court said that Aligarh Muslim University is established under an act of the government, and hence it is not a minority institution. So वो था, that was a constitutional bench. Then there was one more thing that happened. So that you have to understand that in 1981, I believe, Government of India did an amended AMU Act. इसको amend करके, इस act को amend करके उन्होंने इसको minorities institution बनाया. So it got its minority institution status back in 1981 by way of this amendment to the act itself. But this was struck down by Allahabad High Court. So Allahabad High Court struck it down in 2005. So what happened? This was being challenged by some people that this amendment is not correct. This was set up by an act of the government much before the British, much before the Government of India came into place, and hence it is not. So the Allahabad High Court struck it down. So some people, of course, the Muslim Aligarh AMU management and some others also went to the Supreme Court against this order. So Supreme Court, there were petitions in the Supreme Court. They were going on, right? And those petitions, because the Government of India had done that amendment, so Government of India was again on the side AMU plus Government of India was there, right? And they were demanding that this Allahabad High Court order is not the correct order, because we have done an amendment in the act. Now it's a minority institution. Those petitions they were going on, and then suddenly this issue of reservation came in. So reservation under which article? Article 15 talks about, Article 15(4) talks about what? Special provisions for So social and educationally backward communities, SC, STs. But then there is Article 15.5, which talks about what? So there is 15.4 and there is 15.5. Huh? So this 15.4 talks about reservation. 15.5 gives an exception. What does it say? Exception to the minority institute. So the state can make these provisions except in minority institutions, except in institutions set up under Article 30. So Muslim, because this had become a minority institution since 1981, reservation was not being followed because of this exception. So some people went against this. This is such a big institution. It is also one of the institutes of excellence in Indian government. Notifies them also. So it is an institution of excellence. And how is it that it is not following the reservation policy? It is not providing reservation in admissions, also in employment also. That was also another thing. Employment also, because of this exception. Now what happened? When this was challenged, this was going on. The government of India withdrew its petition. This is minority and we are withdrawing. But there were other parties which were there. So in February 2024, February 2024, the court heard, it's a 7-judge bench, I believe, 7-judge constitutional bench. So 7-judge constitutional bench ne uska kiya hai, there was a lot of, for about almost a week, there were arguments from both sides. But the court interestingly did not give a judgment. 7 दिन तक लगातार arguments चली, 7-4-5 दिन, but almost a full week. But the court reserved its order. So the Supreme Court has reserved the order, reserved judgment, reserve कर दिया. तो arguments इसमें वही है दोनों साइड से. पहला तो on those who say that it's a minority institution, they say that was set up by Syed Ahmad Khan Sahab. He gave money to set it up. With his money, Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College was started. It was maintained by those funds. Of course, the British came up with the University Act, but that college was converted into university. The staff, the building, everything was used from there. That is their ground. Plus, they say that there is something called the court, the highest body of a university. You know what is that? The highest body, decision-making body in a university is called the court. ये अपने कोर्ट नहीं है, उनको कोर्ट बोलते. The highest decision-making body or operational body that decides most of the things in an university is called the court. So this court is entirely peopled by Muslims. So they say that this is all minority. So it was started by the funds given by minority, and it is being governed by minorities, entirely Muslim body, and that gives us a minority status. On the other hand, the argument of on the other hand is again same, that it was set up by an act. They're also saying that this protection is not available to AMU because AMU, a legal Muslim university, was set up by an act in 1920. And in 1920, this right did not exist because there was no constitution then. So, constitution came in 1950. So, how can you apply this right there then? So, there are some arguments. We don't know when the judgment will come. It should come. So, जब आती हैं, तो then we will update that, and then that might actually become important from a exam point of view. Because it will be I don't know, maybe expecting the judgment, but it hasn't come.